I'd rather lose my job than lose my dignity. The words cracked through the crystal-soft atmosphere of cold Grand Manhattan like a lightning strike. Forks froze halfway to expensive mouths. Piano music stumbled to silence. And on the private glass balcony above the dining room, billionaire Ethan Cole slowly looked up from his whiskey for the first time all night. Down below, waitress Lily Parker stood beside table 12, breathing hard, one trembling hand still wrapped around a half-empty wine bottle. Red wine dripped across the white linen tablecloth like spilled paint. Senator Richard Hale leaned back in his velvet chair, stunned, his face flushed more from embarrassment than anger. "You embarrassed me," he hissed under his breath. Lily swallowed hard, but her blue eyes never lowered. "You touched me after I asked you not to." Around them, wealthy guests shifted awkwardly in their designer suits and diamond necklaces, pretending not to stare while absolutely staring. The restaurant smelled like butter, grilled steak, and expensive perfume, but Lily could only smell panic. Her pulse hammered so loudly she barely heard the manager storming across the marble floor. "Lily," Manager Denise whispered sharply through clenched teeth, "apologize. Right now." Lily's fingers tightened around the order pad pressed against her apron. The old black apron had faded near the pockets after years of washing, but one sentence stitched into the fabric still remained bright white. "Dignity costs nothing." Her mother had sewn those words there before cancer stole the strength from her hands 2 winters ago. Lily glanced at the stitching for half a second. Then she looked back at the senator. No, a wave of whispers spread across the dining room. Upstairs, Ethan leaned slightly forward in his chair. "Interesting. Very interesting." Most employees froze around power. Most smiled through humiliation for tips and survival. But this waitress stood there like she had absolutely nothing left to lose. Senator Hale laughed coldly and reached for his phone. "You'll never work in this city again." Lily felt the blood drain from her face. Rent was already 6 days overdue. Her mother's medication sat in a paper bag at the pharmacy waiting for payment she still didn't have. She worked double shifts nearly every day and still counted quarters for subway rides home. She should apologize. She knew she should, but something inside her refused to break. "Then I guess I'll find another city," she said quietly. Ethan almost smiled. Almost. Downstairs, Denise rushed forward with forced laughter, offering free dessert, expensive wine, anything to calm the senator before social media exploded by midnight. Lily removed her name tag slowly and placed it on the table beside the untouched filet mignon. Her hands shook now, not from fear, from adrenaline. She turned toward the kitchen corridor before anyone could see tears gathering in her eyes. The heavy metal kitchen doors swung shut behind her, instantly drowning out the glamorous noise of the dining room. The silence back there felt colder somehow. Industrial lights buzzed overhead. Steam curled from dishwashers. Someone cursed near the grill station. Lily pressed both palms against the stainless steel prep counter and finally let herself breathe. "You really did it this time," whispered Mia, another waitress, approaching carefully with worried eyes. Lily laughed softly, though it sounded closer to breaking apart. "Yeah." Mia glanced toward the dining room. "Denise says you're fired." Lily nodded once like she already knew. Of course she was. Her fingers slipped into her apron pocket automatically, checking the folded pharmacy receipt still hidden there beside exactly $28.60 in tips. Not enough. Not even close. She closed her eyes for one painful second. Then a quiet male voice behind her said, "Most people would have apologized." Lily turned quickly. A tall man stood near the storage hallway, wearing a simple charcoal coat and dark jeans. Early 30s maybe. Clean cut. Calm. Not one of the kitchen staff. Not exactly handsome in an obvious way either. Worse. The kind of face people trusted immediately without understanding why. Lily wiped beneath her eye before tears could fall. "Most people need this job more than I do." The stranger studied her silently for a moment, his gray eyes unreadable beneath the fluorescent lights. Then his gaze drifted downward toward the stitching on her apron. "Dignity costs nothing." Something shifted in his expression. Small, almost invisible, but real. "What if they're wrong?" he asked quietly. Lily frowned. "About what?" The man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "About not noticing you." The question lingered in the cold kitchen air long after he said it. Lily stared at the stranger, confused by the calm certainty in his voice. Outside the swinging doors, The restaurant slowly returned to life. Glasses clinked again. Silverware scraped against plates worth more than her weekly grocery budget. But back here, under the harsh fluorescent lights, everything felt strangely still. "Look," Lily said quietly, reaching for her backpack beneath the counter. "If Denise sent you to give me some fake sympathy speech, save it. I already know I am fired." The man slid his hands into the pockets of his charcoal coat. "Denise did not send me." "Then who are you?" For half a second, he hesitated. Ethan Cole had spent most of his life answering that question with power. Billionaire, owner, CEO, the youngest hospitality mogul in Manhattan. But tonight, looking at the exhausted waitress standing in front of him with tear-stained cheeks and trembling fingers, those titles suddenly felt heavy. Useless, even. "My name is Ethan," he said simply. Lily gave a small, tired nod. "Well, Ethan, thanks for the concern, but I should probably go before security escorts me out dramatically." To his own surprise, Ethan almost laughed. "Almost. You are not worried?" Lily slung the faded backpack over one shoulder. "About what?" "Your job. I have been worried about money since I was 14 years old," she replied softly. "At some point, you stop being scared. You just get tired." The honesty of it hit harder than Ethan expected. Most people filtered themselves around strangers, especially around wealth. But Lily spoke like someone too exhausted to pretend anymore. She pushed a loose strand of blonde hair behind her ear and walked toward the back exit near the alley. Ethan watched her go for exactly 3 seconds before following. Outside, Manhattan breathed cold October air into the narrow alley behind the restaurant. Rain from earlier still glistened across the pavement beneath yellow streetlights. Somewhere nearby, a siren echoed between skyscrapers. Lily sat down carefully on an overturned milk crate beside the dumpster and opened her backpack. Ethan stopped a few feet away, uncertain why he had followed her at all. Then he saw what she was doing. From inside her bag, Lily pulled out 2 foil-wrapped sandwiches and a small paper container of soup. A thin older man wearing layers of worn jackets slowly approached from the far corner of the alley. "Evening, Miss Lily," he said gently. "Hey, Walter." Her voice instantly softened. She handed him the food with both hands like it mattered. Like he mattered. "You need to eat while it is still warm this time." Walter smiled with tired gratitude. "You always remember." Lily shrugged. "Somebody should." Ethan stayed silent in the shadows near the back door. Walter noticed him first. "Friend of yours?" Lily glanced back quickly. "Not really." Ethan stepped forward slightly. Walter gave him one careful look, then nodded politely before disappearing toward the street with the food tucked safely beneath his coat. Lily sat back down slowly, rubbing her hands together against the cold. "You do that every night?" Ethan asked. "Most nights." "Why?" She looked genuinely confused by the question. "Because he is hungry." Ethan stared at her. Simple. No speech. No performance. No camera recording kindness for social media applause. Just instinctive humanity. Something uncomfortable twisted in his chest. Cole Hospitality owned 23 luxury restaurants across New York City alone. Millions flowed through his empire every week. Yet somehow the warmest thing connected to his business tonight had come from a waitress barely surviving herself. Lily opened her wallet next. Ethan noticed immediately how empty it looked. One wrinkled $20 bill. A few singles. Subway card. Pharmacy receipt. Nothing else. Her eyes drifted toward the receipt for a moment before quickly folding it shut again. Ethan pretended not to notice. "So what happens now?" he asked. Quietly. Lily laughed under her breath. "Tomorrow." She looked up at the glowing skyline surrounding them. "Tomorrow I wake up, find another job, pretend I am okay, and keep going." Ethan studied her face carefully. No self-pity. No bitterness. Just exhaustion wrapped tightly around determination. Rain began falling again, light at first, barely more than mist. Lily stood and zipped her jacket halfway. The zipper caught near the middle like it always did. "Good luck, Ethan," she said softly before stepping toward the street. "Wait." She turned back. Ethan pulled a business card from his coat pocket instinctively, then stopped himself before handing it over. Not yet. Instead, he folded the card back into his pocket. "What?" Lily asked. Ethan looked at the faded stitching on her apron one more time. Dignity costs nothing. Then he made a decision he had not planned to make when the night began. "Come back tomorrow," he said quietly. "You are not fired." Lily frowned immediately. "How would you know that?" Ethan held her gaze for one dangerous second too long. Because I know the owner. Lily barely slept that night. The radiator inside her tiny Brooklyn apartment rattled like loose bones while rain tapped softly against the fire escape outside her window. She lay awake staring at the cracked ceiling, replaying Ethan's final words over and over again. Because I know the owner. At 3 a.m, she finally sat up and checked her phone. No new emails. No missed calls. No miracle. Just overdue payment reminders and a message from the pharmacy asking when she planned to pick up her mother's medication. Across the room, her mother slept quietly beneath 2 blankets on the old pull-out couch. The oxygen machine hummed softly beside her like a tired heartbeat. Lily looked away quickly before guilt could swallow her whole. By 6:30, she was already on the subway headed back to Manhattan. Maybe Ethan had lied. Maybe Denise would throw her out in front of everyone. Maybe she was humiliating herself by even showing up again. But hope was dangerous that way. Once someone handed you a tiny piece of it, your heart refused to let go. The morning rush inside Cole Grant. Manhattan moved fast and sharp like always. Coffee steamed. Plates clattered. Expensive heels clicked across marble floors. Lily stepped cautiously through the employee entrance, expecting security to stop her immediately. Instead, nobody said anything. A few coworkers stared. Mia nearly dropped a tray when she saw her. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. "I honestly do not know." Before Mia could answer, Denise stormed out of the office near the kitchen holding a clipboard against her chest. Lily braced herself. But Denise stopped 2 feet away with an expression Lily had never seen before. Nervousness. "You are late," Denise muttered stiffly. Lily blinked. "What? Clocking already? Table 16 is waiting." Lily stared at her in complete confusion. "I thought I was fired." Denise adjusted her blazer quickly without making eye contact. Plans changed. Then she walked away so fast it almost looked like fleeing. Mia grabbed Lily's arm immediately. "What did you do?" "Nothing." Denise never changes her mind. Lily's eyes drifted instinctively across the restaurant. Somewhere beyond the polished walls and private offices, Ethan was here. She could feel it somehow. But she did not see him all morning. Lunch rush arrived hard at noon. Tourists. Finance guys. Influencers taking photos of truffle pasta they barely touched. Lily moved automatically between tables, balancing plates across her arms while exhaustion sat heavy behind her eyes. Yet something felt different today. Managers who usually ignored her suddenly smiled too much. Hostesses moved quickly to help her. Even Denise stopped criticizing tiny mistakes. It was strange. Uncomfortable, even. Around 2:30, Lily carried a tray toward the service station when she noticed a familiar figure sitting alone near the back corner booth. Ethan. No charcoal coat today. Just a dark navy sweater and rolled sleeves, casual enough to blend in if someone was not looking carefully. He held a black coffee in one hand while reading reports spread across the table. Nobody treated him like a billionaire. Nobody approached him nervously. To everyone else, he was just another corporate consultant. But now Lily noticed. Things she missed before. The expensive watch hidden beneath his sleeve. The quiet authority in the way managers glanced toward him before making decisions. The silence that followed him naturally. Ethan looked up slowly and caught her staring. Lily looked away immediately, annoyed by the sudden heat rising into her cheeks. A minute later, she approached his table with forced professionalism. "Ready to order?" Ethan closed the folder calmly. "You came back. Turns out you were right. I usually am." Lily almost smiled before stopping herself. "Who exactly are you here?" Ethan leaned back slightly. "Operations consultant." That sounds fake. Most corporate titles are fake. This time Lily did smile a little. Ethan noticed immediately. Dangerous. Very dangerous. For a few quiet seconds, neither of them spoke. The restaurant noise blurred softly around them. Then Lily glanced down and noticed the folder beside his coffee had accidentally fallen open. Across the top page, bold letters read, "Confidential Staff Review." Underneath was a list of employee names. Her name sat near the top. Lily's stomach tightened instantly. "You are evaluating us?" Ethan closed the folder too late. Silence stretched between them. Suddenly last night felt different. The alley conversation. The questions. The kindness. Had all of it been part of some corporate test? Lily stepped back slowly, her expression hardening. "Wow," she whispered. Ethan immediately saw the shift in her eyes. Distrust. Hurt. "Lily." but she was already gripping the edge of the tray tighter. You should have told me. The look in Lily's eyes hit Ethan harder than Senator Hale's threats ever could. 1 second earlier, she had been smiling faintly across the table. Now every wall inside her seemed locked back into place. Lily, Ethan said carefully, lowering his voice, it is not what you think. She let out one soft laugh, without humor. Really? Because it looks exactly like some rich corporate experiment. Nearby waiters rushed past, carrying champagne and lobster risotto while the lunch crowd buzzed around them, completely unaware that Lily suddenly felt like the ground beneath her feet had shifted. Ethan stood slowly from the booth. I did not lie to hurt you. No, she replied quietly. You lied because it was easier. The words stayed between them like smoke. Ethan had negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking. He had faced investors, lawsuits, hostile takeovers. None of it made him feel as strangely exposed as standing here in front of a waitress who suddenly looked disappointed in him. Lily adjusted the tray against her hip. Was last night part of the review too? Ethan frowned. What? The questions in the alley. Watching me hand out food. Acting interested. I was interested. Because I am some inspirational poverty story? Her voice stayed calm, but Ethan heard the hurt underneath it now. That bothered him more than anger would have. He stepped closer carefully. You think I followed you into the rain because corporate policy told me to? Lily looked away first. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Because part of her did not believe he was pretending. That was the problem. Before either of them could say another word, Denise suddenly appeared beside the table with panic practically written across her face. Mr. Brooks from Midtown Investments is here, she whispered urgently toward Ethan. The private dining room is ready. Lily froze. Denise never whispered to consultants like that. Ethan closed the folder calmly. I will be there in 5 minutes. Denise nodded immediately and hurried away. Lily stared after her, then slowly back at Ethan. Mr. Brooks? Ethan rubbed a hand across his jaw once. Lily. No, she stepped backward. Tell me the truth this time. Ethan held her gaze silently for one long second. Around them, expensive conversations floated through candlelit air while jazz music played softly from hidden speakers overhead. The entire restaurant suddenly felt too small. Finally, Ethan spoke quietly. My full name is Ethan Cole. Lily's face lost color instantly. She knew that name. Everybody in New York knew that name. Cole Hospitality. Luxury hotels. Restaurants. Magazine covers. Forbes interviews. Her father used to point at Ethan's face in business articles years ago and say, that kid owns half this city before 35. Lily felt stupid. Now, embarrassingly stupid. The confidence. The managers acting nervous around him. The way everyone moved when he spoke. It all made sense. You are the owner, she whispered. Ethan did not answer because he did not need to. Lily's stomach twisted painfully. She suddenly remembered every honest thing she told him in the alley. The overdue medication. The fear. The exhaustion. She had handed pieces of herself to a billionaire without even realizing it. Wow. She breathed again, softer this time. Ethan stepped toward her carefully. I did not want you treating me differently. You mean the way everyone else does? Yes. Lily shook her head slowly, hurt flashing across her face. You had the luxury of hiding who you are. People like me do not. Ethan felt that sentence land deep somewhere uncomfortable inside his chest. Before he could answer, one of the televisions above the bar suddenly switched to a financial news segment. Bright lights filled the screen. Stocks rise as Ethan Cole prepares billion-dollar expansion flashed across the bottom ticker. And there he was. Ethan himself. Perfect suit. Cold expression. Standing beside investors on Wall Street just 3 days earlier. Lily looked from the television back to the man standing in front of her now. They barely looked like the same person. I should get back to work, she said quietly. Lily, please do not. Her voice cracked slightly on the last word, and she hated herself for it immediately. Ethan noticed. Of course he noticed. She gripped the tray tighter before turning away quickly toward the kitchen corridor. Ethan watched her disappear behind the swinging doors, feeling something unfamiliar settle heavily in his chest. Regret. Real regret. Then Claire Bennett, his executive assistant, approached from the entrance carrying a tablet against her chest. The investors are waiting upstairs, she said carefully. Ethan kept staring toward the kitchen. Reschedule them. Claire blinked in surprise. Sir. Ethan finally looked away from the hallway where Lily had vanished. but his voice stayed distant. I said reschedule them. The storm hit Manhattan just after 7 that evening. Rain slammed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of cold Grand Manhattan, while thunder rolled between skyscrapers like distant drums. Inside the restaurant, candlelight flickered softly across crystal glasses as wealthy guests pretended the weather outside did not exist. But downstairs near the kitchen corridor, Lily Parker felt the storm sitting inside her chest instead. She had spent the entire afternoon avoiding Ethan Cole. Every time she sensed him nearby, her pulse betrayed her. Every time she remembered his real name, embarrassment twisted painfully inside her stomach. Billionaire, owner, CEO, and somehow she had stood in an alley talking to him about overdue bills like he was just another tired stranger. Worse, part of her still wanted to trust him. Table 9 needs another bottle, Denise snapped while rushing past. Lily grabbed the wine automatically and moved through the crowded dining room, trying to focus only on work. But whispers followed Ethan everywhere now that she knew who he really was. Investors near the bar lowered their voices when he passed. Managers straightened nervously. Employees watched him from corners like students watching a strict principal. Yet Ethan himself looked strangely distant tonight, almost distracted. Twice Lily caught him staring absently out the rain-covered windows instead of listening to the executives seated around him. Around 8:15, the lights suddenly flickered once, then twice. A second later, the entire restaurant dropped into darkness. Gasps rippled across the dining room. Somewhere near the kitchen, glass shattered loudly. Emergency backup lights finally blinked on, dim and golden, casting long shadows across marble floors and frightened faces. Rain hammered harder outside. Transformer blew, someone muttered near the bar. Denise immediately started panicking about refunds, reservations, and angry customers. Cell service weakened under the storm. Half the restaurant began complaining at once. Through all the chaos, Ethan stood calmly near the center of the dining room, watching employees scramble in confusion. Then his eyes landed on Lily. She was already moving. Everybody stay seated, she called clearly toward the nervous guests. The kitchen still has gas. Hot food is coming. Nobody is getting stranded tonight. Something about her voice cut cleanly through the panic. People listened. Ethan noticed that too. For the next hour, the restaurant transformed into something completely different from its usual polished perfection. Candlelight replaced chandeliers. Staff carried soup and coffee through dim hallways while rain battered the city outside. A few guests even laughed eventually, posting videos online about the unexpected blackout experience. Ethan quietly watched Lily the entire time. She checked on elderly customers first. She gave her own dry sweater to a soaked hostess shivering near the entrance. When a young busboy nearly dropped an entire tray from exhaustion, Lily steadied it before whispering encouragement instead of criticism. Nobody told her to do any of it. Around 10:30, most guests finally escaped into waiting cars and black umbrellas. The restaurant grew quiet except for the storm outside and the low hum of emergency generators. Lily stood near the back counter rubbing her sore neck when Ethan approached carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. "Peace offering," he said quietly. She hesitated before accepting one. "Thanks." For a moment neither spoke. Rain streaked endlessly across the dark windows beside them. Manhattan looked softer somehow, without its usual bright lights. Ethan leaned against the counter beside her. "You handled tonight better than half my management team." Lily gave him a sideways look. "Are you evaluating me again?" Ethan sighed softly. "I deserve that." She stared down into the coffee cup, warming her hands. "Why did you really hide who you were?" Ethan took a long breath before answering. "Because nobody talks to me honestly once they know." Lily almost replied immediately, then stopped, because she realized something uncomfortable. Since learning his identity, she had been acting differently too. More careful, more guarded. Ethan looked out toward the storm. "People either want something from me or fear me. Sometimes both." His voice stayed calm, but loneliness hid quietly underneath the words. Lily noticed it now, for the first time since discovering the truth. She looked at him not as a billionaire, but as a man who seemed strangely isolated inside his own life. "That sounds exhausting," she admitted softly. Ethan smiled faintly without humor. "It is." Thunder echoed again outside. Somewhere deep in the city, another transformer exploded blue against the skyline. Lily laughed quietly under her breath. New York really knows how to be dramatic. Ethan glanced toward her. You are smiling again. She immediately looked away. Do not get used to it. But Ethan already was. Then Lily's phone suddenly buzzed hard against the counter. One glance at the screen drained all warmth from her face instantly. The hospital. Ethan saw the fear appear before she even answered the call. Lily's fingers tightened so hard around the phone that the paper coffee cup nearly slipped from her hand. The hospital number glowed across the screen like a warning. Her stomach dropped instantly. Mom? She answered too quickly, already standing. The emergency lights above the counter flickered softly while rain battered the windows behind her. Ethan watched every trace of color disappear from her face. No, Miss Parker, a calm nurse explained through the speaker. Your mother is stable, but there was an issue with her oxygen levels tonight. We need you to come in. Lily pressed a trembling hand against her forehead. Is she okay? She is resting now, but the doctor would like to speak with you as soon as possible. The call ended gently, but Lily still stood frozen for a second, staring at the dark screen afterward. Fear moved differently when you had been carrying it for years. Quiet. Familiar. Exhausting. Ethan stepped closer immediately. What happened? Lily shoved the phone into her pocket too fast. I need to get to the hospital. Is your mother all right? I do not know yet. She grabbed her backpack from beneath the counter with shaking hands. Outside, thunder cracked hard enough to rattle the glass doors. The storm had only gotten worse. Streets were flooding across parts of Manhattan already. Half the subway lines were delayed. Ethan reached for his coat without hesitation. I will drive you. Lily looked up. Instantly. No, Lily. I said no. Her voice came sharper than intended. She took a breath, lowering it slightly. I can manage. Ethan studied her quietly. Even terrified, she still fought help like it personally offended her. He recognized pride when he saw it. Maybe because he carried too much of it himself. There are no cabs moving in this weather, he said calmly. And the subway is shutting down downtown. Lily looked toward the rain-covered windows. Deep down, she knew he was right. That somehow irritated her more. I do not need charity from a billionaire. Ethan held her gaze carefully. Good. Because this is not charity. Silence stretched between them again. Then another loud crack of thunder echoed across the city, making several lights flicker overhead. Finally, Lily exhaled quietly. Fine. 5 minutes later, they stepped outside into cold rain and screaming wind. Blacktown cars lined the curb in front of the restaurant, their headlights glowing against flooded streets. A driver rushed toward Ethan holding an umbrella, but Ethan waved it away and opened the passenger door himself instead. Lily noticed that immediately. Billionaires were not supposed to do things themselves. Inside the car, warmth surrounded them almost instantly. Soft leather seats, quiet jazz music, the faint scent of cedar and expensive cologne. Lily sat stiffly beside the window, clutching her backpack tightly against her lap like armor. Ethan gave the hospital address to the driver, then glanced toward her. How long has your mother been sick? Lily stared out at the rain sliding across the glass. 3 years. And you have been paying for treatment alone? She gave a tired shrug. There is not exactly a long line of people volunteering. Ethan leaned back slightly, watching city lights blur past outside. Your father? The question changed something in Lily's expression immediately. Softer. Sadder. He worked kitchens most of his life, she said quietly. Mostly restaurants owned by your company, actually. Ethan looked toward her carefully now. Cole Hospitality? She nodded once. He was an executive chef in Queens before he got sick. Ethan frowned slightly. What happened? Lily laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. 40-hour weeks turned into 70, then 80. No breaks. No insurance loopholes covered his surgery. He kept saying he would rest after one more season. Her fingers tightened around the backpack strap. He died before that season ended. Ethan went very still beside her. Outside, rain hammered harder against the car roof. Lily kept staring forward, unaware of the shift happening quietly inside him. Because Ethan suddenly remembered the old reports from years ago. Labor complaints. Kitchen overwork accusations his father ignored while building the company empire. Ethan had inherited the business after his father died, but some damage had already rooted itself deep into the system long before then. What was his name? Ethan asked softly. Daniel Parker. The name hit Ethan instantly. He remembered it. Not personally. Worse. From a settlement file buried among hundreds his legal department handled years ago. Ethan looked away toward the rain-dark skyline, guilt settling cold and heavy in his chest. Meanwhile, Lily finally noticed the silence beside her and glanced toward him. Ethan's jaw had tightened slightly. His eyes looked distant now, almost haunted. "What?" she asked quietly. Ethan did not answer immediately, because for the first time in years, the empire he built no longer felt impressive to him at all. Mount Sinai Hospital smelled like antiseptic, burnt coffee, and exhaustion. The storm outside rattled against the tall windows while nurses moved quickly through bright hallways under harsh fluorescent lights. Lily walked fast beside Ethan, her wet sneakers squeaking softly against polished floors. She barely noticed him anymore. Fear had taken over completely now. "Room 814, the receptionist told her gently. "Your mother is awake." Lily nodded quickly and hurried toward the elevators. Ethan followed a few steps behind, silent the entire way. Inside the elevator, neither spoke. The soft instrumental music overhead somehow made everything feel even sadder. Lily stared straight ahead while rainwater dripped slowly from the sleeve of her jacket onto the floor. Ethan glanced at her reflection. In the mirrored wall beside them, she looked exhausted. Not just tonight. Years exhausted. The elevator doors opened onto the pulmonary care floor. Nurses walked past carrying charts while televisions murmured quietly behind half-open doors. Lily stopped outside room 814 and inhaled once before pushing the door open. "Mom." Her voice softened instantly. Eleanor Parker looked small against the white hospital pillows, thinner than the last time Ethan imagined healthy people should look. Oxygen tubes rested beneath her nose while gray streaks ran through her once bright blonde hair. But the second she saw Lily, warmth filled her tired eyes. "Hey, baby." Lily crossed the room quickly and took her mother's hand carefully. "You scared me." Eleanor smiled faintly. "Sorry. Apparently my lungs enjoy drama." Lily laughed softly through the fear still sitting in her chest. Ethan stayed quietly near the doorway, uncertain whether he belonged inside this moment at all. Then Eleanor noticed him. Her eyes narrowed slightly with curiosity. "And who is this?" Lily glanced back awkwardly. This is Ethan. He drove me here because of the storm." Ethan stepped forward politely. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Parker." Eleanor studied him for one strange second longer than expected. Then something flickered across her expression. Recognition. "Wait," she said softly. "Cole." Lily froze immediately. Ethan's posture shifted almost invisibly. Eleanor looked between them slowly now. "Ethan Cole." Silence settled heavily inside the room. Lily closed her eyes briefly. Of course her mother recognized him. Everyone did eventually. Ethan gave a small respectful nod. "Yes, ma'am." Eleanor leaned back against the pillows quietly. Not angry. Not impressed either. Just thoughtful. "Daniel used to talk about your father all the time," she said softly. Lily looked surprised. "Dad did?" Eleanor nodded weakly. Said Richard Cole built restaurants like a general builds armies. Ethan looked down slightly at the mention of his father's name. Eleanor noticed immediately. "Your father was not an easy man," she added gently. "Neither was mine." Ethan met her eyes again then. Something honest passed silently. Between them, two people carrying different pieces of the same broken system. A doctor entered briefly to explain medication adjustments and oxygen monitoring. Lily listened carefully, asking questions about insurance coverage, prescriptions, follow-up visits. Ethan stayed silent near the window watching rain streak down the glass outside. But every few minutes his eyes drifted back toward Lily, toward the quiet determination in her voice while discussing bills she clearly could not afford, toward the exhaustion she tried desperately to hide from her mother. After the doctor left, Eleanor eventually fell asleep again beneath the soft hum of machines. Lily carefully adjusted the blanket higher around her shoulders before stepping quietly into the hallway. Ethan followed. The corridor was nearly empty now except for distant footsteps and muted television sounds. Lily leaned against the wall and closed her eyes briefly. "She likes you," Ethan said softly. Lily opened one eye. "My mother likes literally everyone." Ethan smiled faintly. "Still counts." For the first time all night, some of the tension between them eased slightly. Then Lily noticed the vending machines across the hall and laughed under her breath. "Hospital coffee is somehow worse than airplane coffee." Ethan looked genuinely serious. "I own 3 restaurants and somehow cannot argue with that." She smiled before she could stop herself. Ethan noticed again. "Dangerous." Very dangerous. He stepped closer slowly. Lily. Her smile faded slightly at the softness in his voice. What? Ethan looked down the quiet hallway for a second before speaking. About your father. I think there are things inside my company I should have seen sooner. Lily studied him carefully now. No billionaire confidence. No polished corporate answers. Just regret. Real regret. You did not work him to death personally, Ethan. No, he admitted quietly. But I benefited from the people who did. The honesty of that stunned her into silence. Then footsteps suddenly echoed sharply down the hallway. Claire Bennett appeared carrying a tablet and wearing the tense expression Ethan recognized immediately. Bad news. Sir, she said. Carefully, lowering her voice, Senator Hale is demanding a public apology by morning. And the board wants an emergency meeting. Ethan's expression hardened instantly. But before he could answer, Claire added one more sentence quietly. There is also a video online now. Millions of people have already seen it. Lily felt her stomach tighten immediately. What video? Claire hesitated for half a second before turning the tablet screen toward them. The video had already been reposted thousands of times across social media. Bright captions flashed beneath shaky phone footage from inside the restaurant. Waitress stands up to powerful senator. In the clip, Lily's voice cut clearly through the elegant dining room. You do not touch me after I said no. Then came the moment she placed her name tag on the senator's table before walking away with trembling dignity while half the restaurant watched in silence. Millions of views. Hundreds of thousands of comments. Ethan read several headlines quickly. Worker or hero? Billionaire restaurant chain under fire. Senator Hale calls incident defamation. Another clip suddenly appeared beside it. A blurry image of Ethan following Lily into the alley afterward. The internet had already started connecting dots. People know you were there, Claire said quietly toward Ethan. The board thinks this could damage investor confidence. Ethan barely looked at the screen anymore. Instead, he looked toward Lily. She seemed frozen now, overwhelmed by the sudden reality of strangers discussing her life online like entertainment. I did not ask for this, she whispered softly. Ethan's jaw tightened. I know. Claire lowered her voice further. The board wants a statement by morning supporting Senator Hale. They believe protecting the political relationship is the safest option. Silence filled the hospital hallway instantly. Lily stared at Ethan carefully now. Waiting. Ethan could feel it. The choice standing directly in front of him. The easy answer would protect the company. Investors. Expansion plans. Political connections worth millions. He had made those kinds of calculations his entire adult life. But suddenly, all he could see was Lily. Standing in the restaurant with shaking hands, refusing to surrender her dignity for survival. Ethan looked back toward the video one last time. Then he handed the tablet calmly back to Claire. No, Claire blinked once. Sir, we are not apologizing to him. The board will push back hard. Ethan's expression turned cold in the way only powerful people could manage. Controlled. Sharp. Dangerous. Then they can push. Lily stared at him quietly. Claire exhaled carefully, already understanding the storm this decision would create by sunrise. There is also something else, she added hesitantly. We found internal complaints tied to Hale's private events over the last 3 years. Multiple employees reported inappropriate behavior, but management buried the reports. Ethan went completely still. Buried. Claire nodded once. Several managers were protecting high-profile clients. Lily looked away immediately, pain and anger flashing across her face together. Suddenly the restaurant incident no longer felt isolated. Ethan took the tablet back himself this time, scrolling silently through old employee complaints hidden beneath legal settlements and non-disclosure agreements. Names, dates, quiet payouts, stories nobody important wanted to hear. His father built the company like a machine. Protect the wealthy. Replace the workers. Avoid scandal at all costs. Ethan had inherited that machine without fully questioning every broken part inside it. Until now. How many people? He asked quietly. Claire answered softly. At least 11 employees. Ethan closed the file slowly. Something cold settled behind his eyes. Not anger exactly. Clarity. Lily watched the change happen in real time. Ethan, he looked toward her. Your father spent years inside my company being treated as disposable, he said quietly. And I told myself I inherited problems I did not create. His voice hardened slightly. That excuse stops tonight. Claire straightened immediately, already recognizing the tone. CEO mode. Final decision mode. Ethan handed the tablet back to her. Call legal. Schedule a press conference for tomorrow morning. Claire nodded quickly. What exactly are we announcing? Ethan glanced once toward Lily before answering. The truth. Lily's breath caught slightly. You cannot go to war with your own board because of me. Ethan stepped closer. This is not because of you. Then, after one quiet second, he added honestly, it just started with you. Neither of them looked away this time. The hallway suddenly felt smaller somehow. More personal. More dangerous. Then Claire's phone buzzed sharply in her hand. She glanced down at the screen, and her expression shifted instantly. Sir, she said carefully. Senator Hale just posted publicly. Ethan held out his hand for the phone. On the screen was a smiling photograph of Hale beside several investors at a charity gala. Underneath it, one sentence glowed coldly across social media. False accusations from unstable employees will not destroy respected men. Lily's face lost color immediately. Ethan stared at the post for exactly 3 silent seconds before speaking. Good, he said quietly. Now I do not have to protect him anymore. By sunrise, Manhattan was already talking about Ethan Cole. Every news channel played clips from the restaurant incident beside headlines about corruption, hidden employee complaints, and the billionaire CEO preparing for a live statement. Outside Cole Hospitality headquarters, reporters crowded behind metal barricades holding microphones beneath gray morning skies still heavy from the storm. Inside the top-floor conference room, board members argued loudly around a polished walnut table worth more than most people's yearly salaries. You are about to destroy investor confidence over a waitress, one executive snapped. Ethan stood quietly at the far end of the room, adjusting the cuff of his dark suit. Calm. Controlled. Dangerous. No, he replied evenly. I am about to destroy a system that protected powerful men while sacrificing employees. Another board member slammed a folder shut. Hale has political influence across 3 states. Ethan looked up slowly. Then perhaps he should have behaved like someone worthy of influence. Silence followed immediately. Claire Bennett stood near the doorway watching the room unravel exactly the way she expected. Ethan had spent years avoiding unnecessary wars. But once he made a final decision, there was no moving him afterward. One older investor leaned forward carefully. If you go through with this press conference, you may lose millions. Ethan's expression never changed. Then I lose millions. Across the city, Lily sat beside her mother's hospital bed staring at the television mounted high on the wall. Every channel carried the same countdown clock beneath Ethan's photograph. Live statement in 10 minutes. Eleanor glanced toward her daughter quietly. You care about him. Lily immediately shook her head too fast. Mom. Eleanor smiled faintly beneath the oxygen tubes. Baby, I was young once too. Lily looked back toward the television without answering. Because the truth scared her a little now. Somewhere between the rainstorm, the alley conversations, and the way Ethan looked at her like she actually mattered, something inside her had shifted. And she did not know what to do with it. The live broadcast finally began exactly at 9 o'clock. Cameras flashed wildly as Ethan stepped behind the podium inside Cole Hospitality headquarters. Reporters shouted questions immediately. Ethan ignored all of them at first. He simply adjusted the microphone once and looked directly into the cameras. For years, he began calmly. This company protected wealth more carefully than it protected people. The room fell silent instantly. Even reporters stopped moving. Ethan continued steadily. Last night, millions watched a young employee defend her dignity against a powerful customer. What the public did not know was that multiple employees reported similar behavior long before that incident occurred. Gasps spread quietly across the room. Ethan did not stop. Those complaints were buried by management protecting influential clients. That failure belongs to this company. And ultimately, it belongs to me. In the hospital room, Lily stared at the television in shock. Billionaires were not supposed to admit fault publicly. Especially not Liv. Ethan's voice remained calm but firm. Effective immediately, Senator Richard Hale is permanently banned from all Cole Hospitality properties. Several executives involved in suppressing employee complaints have also been terminated. Reporters erupted with shouted questions again. Ethan raised one hand slightly. Silence returned. Additionally, he continued, Cole Hospitality will launch the Daniel Parker Employee Protection Initiative, providing healthcare support, legal protection, and emergency assistance for hospitality workers nationwide. Lily's breath caught painfully in her chest. Her father's name glowed across the screen beneath Ethan's image in bright, white letters. Beside her, Eleanor quietly covered her mouth with trembling fingers. Ethan looked directly into the cameras one final time. No employee should ever have to choose between survival and dignity.